Hello, welcome back to the podcast. It's been a week. I had finals, so I was focusing on the finals with projects, exams. Your boy got AB on a roll. That's nice. And so I'm trying to get back to a normal type schedule, as normal as I can make it, through a hectic holidays. But wanted to give a casuals guide to the college football playoffs, the new expanded 12-team playoffs. For the first time ever, it's feeling like a real playoff like you would see in other sports, a real tournament that you would see in a normal sport that you didn't see in college football before this year. So how the playoff is formatted is they rank teams normally, and if you don't know, in college football, teams are ranked by opinions, and in college sports in general, they're ranked by opinions, not ranked by wins and losses necessarily. There's a committee of people who rank these teams based on who they think's best or better, who they think is not better, etc. So the way this playoff works, there's 12 teams. The top 5 teams that win their conference get automatically in the playoffs. The top 4 of those conference champions get first-round byes of the playoffs. I mean, they don't have to play in the first round. They are automatically into the second round of the playoffs. The rest of the teams are seeded 5 through 12, with 5 playing 12, 6 playing 11, 7 playing 10, and 8 playing 9. And also, all those first-round matchups are actually on campuses, meaning the higher seeds will host the lower seeds in a home game for them, which gives them a tremendous advantage heading into the game, especially when you have a northern team playing a southern team in a foot of snow. That's going to be a huge advantage for some of these teams. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go through all 12 teams, going to go through the matchups, the bracket, and maybe give a guide as to what the inside of these teams are. Maybe if you're a casual or you're a neutral fan, you want to pick a team to root for in this playoff, you can go for it. So we're going to start at the top with the number 1 team in the country, undefeated all year. The only unbeaten remaining is the Oregon Ducks, led by the man who finished 3rd in the Heisman Trophy, Dylan Gabriel. I've been playing the game. Dylan Gabriel, the Hawaiian, the all-time passing leader in college football. He's been playing the longest, 6th year in the sport, and he is looking to finally make a huge postseason impression, something that he did not do in his previous 2 stops at UCF and Oklahoma. So he's playing for his 3rd team, 6th year in the sport, all-time leader in almost every category because he's been playing the longest. And this Oregon team, flashy uniforms, with Nike, the nostalgia from the old Obama days back when they were good and making huge strides in the postseason. They are the best program that has never won the title. They have never won a national championship in Eugene, Oregon. Can this finally be the year for the Ducks? They have a superstar head coach in Dan Lanning, who is a dynamite defensive coach, loves hard-hitting, and loves flying around with this Duck offense with the flashy uniforms and all. This is going to be a tough cookie for anyone to swallow. Of course, they have yet to be beaten on the season. They have a dominant defensive front, a quarterback who has done it all besides win it. For a program that has done it all besides win it all, could this be finally the year for the Oregon Ducks? 2 seed of the playoffs. Also the first round bye, the Georgia Bulldogs. If you were to say at the start of the season, Georgia would finish the regular season 11-2, SEC champions, only 2 losses coming at Alabama and at Ole Miss, you would think this would be a tremendous Georgia team that would be the favorites to win it all. Unfortunately, Georgia is not the favorites to win it all. They have limped all year. They have not lived up to expectations despite winning games they're supposed to. And the 2 teams that they lost to, Alabama and Ole Miss, have not lived up to expectations in their own right. This Georgia team is coming in with an offense that has struggled, and now with a backup quarterback likely for the entire playoffs in Gunnar Stockton. This is going to be a rough road for the team that has dominated recent college football. But This is still a dominant defensive team that, despite having a backup quarterback, beat Texas in the SEC championship game. Could this rough and tough, run, defensive-minded team win it all again? We will find out. We just pray to God that the Georgia Bulldogs are not on the road. We just have to hope that the Georgia football players just call Ubers when you go out, everybody. If you go out and you get intoxicated, please call an Uber, call a friend. Do not do what Georgia football players do, and that's drive impaired. Don't do it. Moving on to the 3 seed, a team that has historically always been a darling of the sport, always been David to the Goliath. Boise State, the 3 seed, has finally cracked a postseason, finally cracked a shot at the national championship game. For over 20 years, Boise State has been the kind of David to the Goliath of college football. They have been the best small university, well, not really small, but like the best lower tier university that it can always beat teams that are way more talented, way more money than them, but they have never, ever had a shot to win the national championship. Thanks to this playoffs, they finally do. And they have the best, maybe the best player in the country in Ashton Jeanty, their running back, who has put up maybe the best Heisman Trophy finalist season ever. He didn't win the award. He finished second place, and it's maybe the best second place in the history of that trophy. This Boise team is scrappy underdogs that they've been for 20 years with the best player in the country in Jeanty. Can they finally win it all? Can the Boise State Broncos from little old Boise, Idaho, playing on a blue field, led by a under-recruited running back who nobody else besides the Broncos wanted, can that team finally pull it off? We will find out. Number 4, Arizona State, the Sun Devils. Arizona State has always been mid in college football. They've had a down last 10 years, a really bad last 5 years. They were picked to finish dead last in their conference this season, and they ended up winning the entire conference, going to the playoffs as a first-round bye. So far has been one of the best surprises of the college football season, have been the Sun Devil team. They are dominant on offense. Cam Scatterboo, the running back, tremendous. Sam Levitt, the quarterback, has been a revelation for the Sun Devil team. And we figured out against Iowa State, this is a dangerous defense that are ball hawks all over the field. Can the team in Tempe, Arizona, who has already shocked the world by getting here, continue to shock the world and pull off the biggest surprise national champion of all time? Moving on to the teams that will not have a first-round bye. All of these teams will be playing on either Friday or Saturday. Friday, December 20th and Saturday, December 21st. Moving to the Texas Longhorns, who will be playing Saturday at 4 o'clock. First year in the SEC. They went 11-1 the regular season, lost the SEC championship game. Both of those losses for Texas came to Georgia. They've beaten all the teams they're supposed to. They lost to the Dogs and didn't look good against Georgia at all. This team, much like Georgia, has not lived up to the hype. This team offensively is not clicking whatsoever with Quinn Ewers, and they might have to put in Arch Manning now. Now the Longhorns go up against Clemson this Saturday. Winner faces Arizona State. They get the home crowd. They get a team that's been mid, to say the least. This is a Texas team that has yet to win a big game this season, and they can finally get that big win this Saturday. In Texas, they're one of the most historic teams ever. They have not won a national championship. They haven't even been damn relevant since George Bush's administration. But can they finally pull it off? Can Steve Sarkisian finally beat the fraud allegations? Can King of the Hill, can Hank Hill be happy? Moving on to the 6th seed, Penn State. They play at noon against SMU. Nittany Lions have yet to win a big game under James Franklin. In almost the last 10 years, Penn State has won as many games against since 2016, Penn State has won as many big games as UNI. They have yet to beat a top 10 team. They've yet to be a top 5 team, period, in that time. And they're going to have to do that if they want to pull this off. Nittany Lions have beaten the teams they're supposed to. They have lost the teams they're supposed to as well. But when you go up against this environment, you have to elevate your level. Can Penn State finally do that? They have Drew Aller, who is one of the most overrated quarterbacks in the country. Can he beat the overrated allegations? James Franklin, in a big moment, does he turn into the Keegan-Michael Key impersonation of him? We will find out. Penn State is going to have the best home field advantage, despite it being at noon, and any team's going to have in the first round. If they lose to SMU in the first round, it will be the most embarrassing loss, and I expect James Franklin will be on the hot seat because he will once again fail to win a big game. But Penn State's aspirations, their expectations of championships, are they really at that level? We will find out in the playoffs. 7th seed, Notre Dame, 11-1 on the season, one of the most historic teams. Also, every time they go to the playoffs, they've been to the playoffs twice in the 4-team era. Now they're back in the 12-team era. But every time they get into these big environments, when they have to play a big game, they get shellacked. They get eviscerated in almost every big game they've played in the last 10 years, no matter who's the head coach, no matter what the situation looks like. Notre Dame is not Penn State is not a big game university anymore. But can they do that against their in-state opponent, Indiana? It will be the battle for the Hoosier State in South Bend, Indiana. Notre Dame's going to have, on Friday night, going to have probably a more physical advantage. Indiana, they're going to have the talent advantage. They're going to have the experience advantage being in these bigger environments, but they haven't won in the big environments yet. So if you want to root for the Irish, you're going to be rooting for a team that has yet to win it since the Reagan days. This is one of the most historic in tradition and historical rich teams in the sport, but they haven't won it in so many years. Can the Irish finally pull it off? Their one loss on the season was the worst loss that any team in the top 25, not even just the playoffs, the top 50 in the country has faced, losing to a mid-major in Northern Illinois who was mid as shit at best. One of the worst losses that a playoff team has ever suffered. But can they rebound and win it all? Moving number 8, Ohio State. The team with the most pressure on them. Under Ryan Day, the Buckeyes, much like all the teams I talked about, yet to win it all. They won the first ever 14 playoff back in 2014 with a third-string quarterback. Now they're coming into the playoffs limping on their last legs. Ryan Day is on his last legs as well. If he doesn't win it all, he will probably be fired at Ohio State. But if this team doesn't face their rivals, Michigan, they seemingly beat every team that's not their arch rivals in the Wolverines. This Buckeye team is just not as good as what they were in the past. They have the wide receiver core. They have the defensive line. They have a veteran quarterback who has yet to step up in the big moments in Will Howard. But can he finally step it up in the biggest moment? Can his coach save his job and win in the big moments? The Buckeyes, they're one of the most passionate fan bases, one of the biggest and loudest and obnoxious fan bases. But they have genuine gripe. Ohio State is one of the most talented teams. They spent over $20 million on this roster. It's the highest paid roster in college sports history. And if they don't win it all, it will be all for nothing. Moving on to the team that they play, number 9, Tennessee. The Buckeyes will play the Vols at home Saturday night in what will be an environment. Tennessee has been in the top 10, the most team that's consistently been ranked high. They're just meh. The Vols have kind of been they're kind of like Penn State and Notre Dame. Historic powerhouse that has not won it in so many years. Despite having one of the biggest donor bases, biggest fan base, and biggest stadiums. But the Vols may have something. Nico Imaliava, hasn't had the best season, up and down year, but he, talent-wise, is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country, but he's yet to put it together in his first season at the helm. Josh Heupel, their head coach, won a national championship way back when he was a player at Oklahoma, but can he now coach a team to the promised land? Can he coach a team to the national championship? Tennessee is not expected to go very far, but they're just scrappy defensive mind, and they have one of the best running backs in the country in Dylan Sampson. So can the Vols, despite all the hell they have been through in the last 25 years as a fan base and as a program, going through multiple coaches, scandals, you name it, Tennessee has been through it. Can they finally put it together? Can their quarterback put it together and pull off one of the best runs we've seen in history of the sport? Number 10 will probably be my pick for the best Cinderella story in the country. Indiana will travel to their in-state opponent, Notre Dame. The Hoosiers are historically one of the losingest programs in the entire sports history. Indiana historically is, in pro wrestling, you have jobbers, essentially guys who go out there just to lose. Indiana is the biggest college football jobber out there. And then all of a sudden this year, they get a new head coach. They get a quarterback in Curtis Rourke who is underdeveloped, under-recruited, spent a long time at a lower-level team in Ohio. And now he gets his chance. Their head coach gets a chance finally, Kirk Cignetti, at a new program, and they skyrocket this team to the college football playoffs, 11-1 on the year. Outside of that one game against Ohio State, they dominated every single game they were in. And now the Hoosiers have a shot to pull off history, being one of the losingest teams of all time, to all of a sudden national championships in one season. They've already had one of the biggest turnarounds in the history of the sport. But can they pull it off? If they want to pull it off, this team has to keep getting the run game, has to get that play-action game working that they did not get to Ohio State. They have to not win the line of scrimmage, just keep it, a fight. As I said, this team is talent-wise not going to be there with pretty much any team they're going to play in those playoffs. But the thing with Notre Dame, or not thing with Notre Dame, the team they're playing Notre Dame, thing with the Hoosiers, belief. You have one of the best hot coaches. You have one of the best hot quarterbacks. Can you pull off one of the best Cinderella runs in the history of the sport? Speaking of in the sport, number 11 is SMU. In their first year at the highest level of competition, the Power Four, they paid their way into the ACC. And they were a 56-yard field goal away from winning the ACC in their first year. If you don't know, SMU in the 70s and back, they were bottom feeders out in Texas. They were bottom feeders. Then in the 80s, they started paying players under the table when you're not supposed to back in those days. They got caught and got their football program banned for a couple years before they actually got it back and had to restart. Since then, they've been middling of the pack, to say the least, for the last 30 years. Then over the last, maybe 5 to 8 years, they start to get a little bit more boosters. Now the NIL has come into the fold and more money's coming to the sport. More of those oil tycoons in Texas, also George Bush, he starts giving a little money to the program and giving more and more and more. Next, this team has just been, a footnote of college football history about, what could have been if this team never got caught or never did the things they did, are now propped up and with a shit ton of oil money behind them, have now found their way into the college football playoffs with a quarterback who wasn't even starting to start the season in Kevin Jennings, a program that, as of 12 months ago, never even sniffed the idea that this could be a possibility. And now they are thrusted into this out the gate with just basically paying their way, just like in the 80s, they've paid their way into the playoffs. And, it could be one of the craziest runs you've ever seen. Also one of the best, gamble decisions in sports history. They joined a conference in the ACC that looked like and still looks like it is on its last rails before it gets raided, before it gets disbanded, whatever the hell is going to happen with the ACC. They joined that conference, agreed to not make a single cent off that conference, basically paying for free without getting any TV revenue money, and could win it all. It's one of the biggest gambles in sports history, but man, that reward is insane. They can pull off. This team, as I said, they have Kevin Jennings, their quarterback, a dual threat guy who didn't even start the season, was thrown into the starting role after their one loss to BYU, and he has not looked back since. He's been one of the best players in the ACC, one of the best players in America. Rhett Lashley is one of the best young coaches in America as well. And this team out in Dallas looks to give them a fight. And as they play Penn State this Saturday. And the 12 seed, the last team to make the playoffs, they made it, is my beloved Clemson Tigers. One of the most seasons in program history, 9-3 on the season. It was about 3 o'clock the Saturday, or Thanksgiving Saturday. We had just lost to South Carolina, our third loss in the year, after a heartbreaking touchdown that Sellers ran, after a heartbreaking interception that our quarterback Cade Klubnik threw. And you turn the TV on, and all you needed was for Syracuse to pull off this massive upset over the 6th-ranked team in the country, Miami. That's all you needed to get in to the ACC championship game. Because otherwise, if that didn't happen, your hopes were done. So Clemson sits there and has to hope that that's their one opportunity to get in, is for this miracle to happen. And then Syracuse goes down 21-0 out the gate. They're getting stomped by Miami. They're getting blown out. They're getting smacked by the Hurricanes. And all hope is lost for Clemson. Another season without the college football playoffs. Even with a 12-team expanded playoffs, Clemson still didn't make it. And then Syracuse pulls off one of the craziest comebacks in I've ever seen, and pulls off this massive upset over Miami. And Clemson, thanks to that Miami loss, is thrusted into the ACC championship game. And then all of a sudden is playing an 8th-ranked team in the country in SMU. And then they go up huge out the gate on SMU. It looks like, holy crap, we're dominating the Mustangs. We look like we were dead in the water less than a week ago, and now we're blowing out the number 8 team in the country, and we're about to go to the playoffs. Then SMU comes storming back, ties the game with I think it was 16 seconds left. And then somehow Clemson gets a great kick return with Adam Randall. Good throw by Cade Klubnik gets us in the field goal range. And with a true freshman kicker, we line up for a 56-yard field goal. The Tigers have had the most kicks blocked in the country. And our true freshman kicker, 18 years old, looks at the coach, winks, and then proceeds to drill a field goal from the other side of the field to send the Tigers to the playoffs in one of the most miraculous moments that I've ever seen as a Clemson fan. But this team is led by our quarterback. It lives and it dies by Cade Klubnik, because this Tiger team, it's either explosive plays, explosive offense, or it's nothing. It's Cade Klubnik throwing to these young receivers out wide, or it's nothing. The defense has been up and down all year. The run defense has been atrocious all year. The running game on offense has been pedestrian. And now the Texas boy, the Westlake High School boy from Austin, Texas, Cade Klubnik, now has to play his hometown team in the Texas Longhorns in their house. And not only that, he has to play Quinn Ewers, a guy he beat in the state championship game back in high school. It's a homecoming for Cade. It's a redemption tour for Clemson after a miserable last couple seasons for the Tigers. And if they want to pull this off, they have to go through one of the hardest paths to get there, to the national championship game. But if there's anything this Tiger team has done is defy the odds, defy all expectations, defy all sorts of logic, and win the whole thing. So, my picks, we're going to start Friday night, Notre Dame, Indiana. I love the Hoosiers. I don't like the Irish. Notre Dame, I think, has got this one in the bag. They are obviously a more talented team. Been here before. Riley Leonard has been a pretty good quarterback for them, despite the NIU game, Northern Illinois game. So I'm going with the Irish over the Hoosiers. Noon on Saturday, SMU, Penn State. There is like a foot of snow on the ground in Happy Valley, Pennsylvania. I don't think a team from Dallas that relies on that explosive offense can keep up. I'm going to the Nittany Lions to pull that one out. At 4 o'clock Saturday, Texas and Clemson. As I love Clemson, much as my heart says go with the Tigers, Texas just matches up so well against Clemson. So well. And I know I wanted to go to wanted Clemson to play Texas, go do Texas, rather than having to go up to play in snowy Pennsylvania or Indiana. But, just on the field is going to be a really rough matchup. So I'm going with the Longhorns there. And Saturday night, Ohio State, Tennessee. Ryan Day's going to get fired. I'm picking Tennessee to win. I think this team matches up. They're going to be the more physical team. They're going to be the more battle-tested team. They're going to have the best mental fortitude than Ohio State. Ohio State's going to be rattled. They're going to be startled after that Michigan loss. They're going to be pressing because they're playing for their coach, who is about to get fired. They're playing for their program. And that fan base in Columbus, if they go down early, they're going to start a riot in that building. Moving on to the second round. On New Year's Eve, my projected matchup is Boise State, Penn State. Penn State got absolutely gashed by the Ducks in the Big Ten Championship game. Boise State has looked really good all year. They've beaten a couple of really good teams. They almost beat Oregon as well. As much as I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going Nittany Lions to pull that one out over Boise. I just think Penn State, they're just going to be too much, overwhelm Boise a little too much. And I think their run game's going to get significantly better than what it was in the previous game. So I'm going with Penn State to pull out the win over Boise. New Year's Day at 1. My projected matchup is Arizona State, Texas. I'm going with the Longhorns on this one. Ooh, hiccups. It's going to be a great game. Cam Scatterboo can maybe kind of gas this Longhorn defense. But, I said once again, Arizona relies heavily also on explosive plays. Texas is great at that. They're a talented team. They have proven Arizona State is, can be beaten through the air, and I think that's going to be apparent on New Year's Day as Texas advances. The Rose Bowl, also New Year's Day. Projected matchup is Oregon and Tennessee. I just think you have to keep up with the Ducks' high-powered offense, and I don't think Tennessee can do that. I'm going with the Ducks on this one in the Rose Bowl over the Volunteers. As Nico is just not that level yet. It's going to be cool as hell to see Tennessee in the Rose Bowl of all places, one of the most historic buildings in the country. In the Sugar Bowl, it's projected to be Georgia and Notre Dame. But if there's a backup quarterback starting for the Dogs, I'm going with the Irish to pull that one out. I just don't think they can make enough plays with a backup to beat this Notre Dame defense, to, let's say, get over that hump that nobody else has been able to penetrate. Even in their loss, Notre Dame defensively looked really good. It's just the offense looked really bad. And I think it's going to be a low-scoring contest, but I'm going with the Irish to pull that one out over the Dogs. Semifinals, projected to be Oregon, Texas, in Dallas in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl, AT&T Stadium. The Longhorns and the Ducks, two historic teams. Texas hasn't won it since 2005, and Oregon's never won it. Two teams that were at the prominent face of the college football realignment now meeting. I say with Texas, they really got to stop in explosive plays, but Oregon is so good at sustaining drives with their quarterback with the run game. And Texas has just struggled winning these big games. I'm going with Oregon on this one to get to the national championship. And I just don't think Quinn Ewers has the juice. He's just not the guy. I don't think Arch is at that level yet to be that guy. So I think Dylan Gabriel gets his team over the hump. It gets them to the national championship game. In the Orange Bowl, which had to be Notre Dame and Penn State. This is the beauty of it. Neither of these teams would have had a single Sam Cell chance in hell in the 14 playoff era. Now they're playing for a shot national championship. This will be low-scoring, hard-fought defense. That'll probably be 19-16, something like that. But I trust that James Franklin has been in these environments. He hasn't won them, but he's been in more of them. And I'm going with the Nittany Lions to just squeak it out. The difference in that game will be Warren, the tight end, who was one of the front runners for the Heisman. His top 10 Heisman Trophy odds. I think he will cause nightmares for that Irish linebacker core, for that Irish defense. And so I'm going with Penn State to get the national championship game. It will be a Big Ten title rematch between Oregon and Penn State. And I think it will be the exact same situation in Atlanta as it was in Indianapolis. Oregon is just too good to be beaten by a Penn State team. Simple as that. And I think the Ducks are going to raise the trophy in Atlanta, Georgia. And a couple years ago, Danny Lanning's first game he was ever the head coach for, he got beat 49-3 in that same building by the Georgia Bulldogs. I think he goes back into that same building for the first time since then, Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, and wins the national championship game and completes the first ever 16-0 national championship. Thank you all for listening. I think my end-of-year wrestling list may come out either this week or next week sometime. I have to have my end-of-year list at some point because, the college football season's wrapping up. I'm so sad, but I'm so happy at the same time because I get to finally find out who's won it all, who's going to be the team to finally win it all. And after that, it should be the playoffs, NFL playoffs getting started up at the same time. It should be getting good to go. Panthers got officially eliminated. Cool. Whatever. Bryce looks like our guy. That's all I need to worry about. Bryce is the guy. Now we just got to get him something around him. So, yeah, thank you all. Good night, stay safe, and Merry Christmas.